In our discussion about Tesla versus Google or uh, piecemeal parochial solutions that yield to a complete full self-drive versus end-to-end learning that Google is probably inspired by through the deep mind work that they did with Go and chess. In this discussion, I just came across an interesting thought from David Deutsch's book, The Beginning of Infinity, and it's one of his statements, which is evolution doesn't have a goal. So, how is knowledge being created in evolution, and how does biological knowledge differ from human knowledge? Humans have explanatory power and have the ability to follow a purpose through the expression of free will, versus evolution doesn't. So, this begets the question, if you have an end-to-end learning system in driving, so you're creating an artificial intelligence that drives, what's the goal of driving? How does the system even know what to do? This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's October 29, 2020. This is Krim Delco. For the day, the fund is up 6%. The market is up about 1.5%. For the year, we're up 199%. The market is up roughly 3%. We're outperforming by 196%. We have discussed the Tesla full self-drive suite at length in many episodes, and because it is probably the most important piece of the business as far as valuation is concerned going forward, we absolutely don't shy away from continuing to talk about this particular part of the business. And we have contrasted the Tesla business with Google, because when you are in the business of creating software in general, you always have to ask yourself, what are the big competitors doing? It used to be Microsoft, now it's Google. And the idea is that you have a specific approach, a specific way of doing things, and you have now, you have to ask yourself the question, well, is this specific way the right way? So regardless of the engineering challenges that you have on a daily basis, which of course are very serious, you also have to ask yourself, well, is my approach actually the right approach? So for example, if Alex Honnold wants to climb El Capitan free solo, he has a lot of technical challenges to solve. But first and foremost, he has to make a decision, which approach am I going to take? Is this even doable? Am I going to die in the process or not? So there are certain fundamental questions that he had to answer before he even went and did it. Sometimes we can do it, sometimes we cannot. Maybe when Laird Hamilton did the first big wave surfing videos and surfed big waves and so on and so forth, maybe those were more crazy type of situations where you didn't have an idea and you basically jumped in the cold water and you could have died. But in a sense, whenever we do something serious in terms of big endeavor, big try, we have to first of all have the right approach. We have to have the right idea before we even go there. And this is the conversation today. Is Tesla having the right approach, or is Google having the right approach? I'm simplifying it into a dichotomy of Tesla versus Google because it's easier to talk. Of course, there are others, AI, there's Cruise, there's NVIDIA. So I do acknowledge there's a lot of other competitors. There's people in China doing stuff. But nevertheless, I think it's easier to keep the conversation between piecemeal, parochial, and end-to-end learning. And if we have that conversation, we have to ask ourselves, well, in the Tesla approach, one thing is clear. There's a purpose. The purpose is to be feature complete, full self-drive, which means just get the job done. Do what I'm doing in real life, which is driving around, and have the machine do it for me. The goal of the Tesla full self-drive is to drive without driver intervention. This is the goal, and it's defined by solving tasks. Tasks such as lane keeping, turning, right, left, stop signs, and so on and so forth. Reality throws all these tasks at us. Tesla is gathering data through observing reality and then solving the tasks. They've built a data engine. They've built they've built kind of a Palantir within Tesla. And it's very interesting now that we're looking at Palantir as a investment, how similar those companies are. And it's not surprising. They come from the same place. They both work together. Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. Thiel is the co-founder of Palantir. Elon Musk is the founder and CEO of Tesla. So it's not surprising that some of the approaches are very similar, and they all root back into the late 90s, early 2000s, when these people worked together on PayPal. What did they do? They developed a software suite, a software-driven business, which incorporates humans. This is the fundamental difference between Tesla, PayPal, Palantir, and a few other businesses, but in particular those businesses. What am I trying to say here? What I'm saying is that we don't have a typical Silicon Valley approach, the most typical one being Windows or Oracle, and in newer times maybe Salesforce, and we have other all these enterprise software companies, SAP, where we have build a software and then squeeze the customer into that software, force them to adapt your software, and do that by selling it to the competition. And then if you don't have it, you're going to be lagging. So everybody has the same thing, and everybody has to start adapting to your cookie cutter software solution. This is kind of in a nutshell how Silicon Valley works pretty successfully. That's why there's billions and billions of dollars being created. The Tesla approach is very different. The Tesla approach, of course, is, first of all, we're not selling software to anybody. We're just simply doing it for ourselves. But most importantly, Tesla is building software around real-world problems that humans have. For example, Tesla is building software that can be delivered over the air to the cars. This is a real problem that nobody has done before, which is a SaaS model with physical goods. And Palantir is doing the same thing with, let's say, the army. They're delivering SaaS solutions to entities in the army. SaaS being over-the-air updates, all the advantages of SaaS, software as a service, which is updates are constantly updated. I mean, you have the updates. You don't have to have a disk or something uploading and all that stuff. You can do cloud native development. You have all the other advantages. The ontology of data is being carefully crafted, so data that belongs in certain buckets and has relationships to other buckets is classified as such, and therefore can be also migrated throughout the system and doesn't lose its value or doesn't corrupt other data ontologies, etc. So in a nutshell, what Tesla is doing is building the software stack around real human problems and evolving with it. So there is, I would say, a chance that we have something like evolution here. The goal is to solve the problems that humans have. So this is unlike evolution in a sense that the goal is clear. We want to solve real human problems. But here's where it's a bit like evolution. These systems, such as Palantir or Tesla, they have the chance to change and become much better at things that they were in the beginning. And more importantly, they can also change their actual purpose. Let me digress a bit here. So David Deutsch, in his book, Beginning of Infinity, he talks about this robot. Let's think about a robot that is designed by humans and then through an evolutionary algorithm gets better and better. He's trying to make the point that this robot really is not the creation of any kind of new knowledge, and that this is not how evolution works, because the fundamental thing with this robot is going to be that he's not going to change his function. Let's say the robot's function initially was to walk, or even worse, let's say you make a robot like a killer robot. Okay, let's do the worst case example here. And now let this robot evolve. And there are algorithms out there, there are approaches. Boston Dynamics, I think, is doing stuff like that. The point is, this robot will always stay a killer robot. He will not change. He will not start jumping. He will not start trying to compete as a weightlifter or a martial artist, or he will not maybe change his mind and become a novelist. That's not going to happen. And that is exactly, in David Deutsch's words, That's what humans do. That's what evolution does. Now, biological knowledge, evolution doesn't have a goal. So there, it just happens that new things happen and then they get tested and the winners survive, the losers lose, etc. With humans, it's a little bit different in a sense that we have explanatory power. So we can change the course of evolution according to our purpose. And then, of course, we also test our approaches, and sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. But we have the ability to change the course of evolution. We have this additional dimension that David Deutsch calls explanatory power. Now I want to draw the arc back to Tesla versus Google. Tesla, like I said, similar to Palantir, is built around humans. Just by the definition of the business. And if I go back to the sources of both Palantir and Tesla, which I consider to be PayPal, even that, it was, that was the first digital payment system at scale, and it was built around humans in the sense that humans were using it, and more importantly, humans were trying to be fraudulent. This is the key. So they had to build businesses, they had to build solutions around human activity. It couldn't be simulated. This is the fundamental key difference between Tesla and Google or anybody else in the self-drive. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. This is the fundamental difference between Tesla and the Google approach of end-to-end learning. Let's keep it at that. I know there are other people out there. Please don't send me comments now. I know people are doing different approaches. This discussion is about piecemeal approach versus end-to-end. And I'm using Tesla versus Google. Let's just clarify that. So back to the discussion. This is the fundamental difference between Tesla and everybody else is simply that Tesla is building a solution around reality, around physical reality, around what is out there, in particular, how the laws of physics get translated into reactions and actions of the car. So for example, if the car drives towards a stone, the laws of physics through the stone will interact with the car. And that is something you cannot simulate. You cannot simulate, at least we don't have the knowledge so far to simulate it. And to paraphrase Elon Musk's several comments about this, he said, you cannot simulate reality, otherwise it wouldn't be reality. Or the difference between reality and the simulation is that you cannot simulate reality. And in other words, in David Deutsch's words, what he's saying is that since we don't understand reality, we can't program it, and hence we can't simulate it. Let's let this sink in. Since we don't understand reality, we cannot program it, and therefore we cannot simulate it. This is what Elon Musk is saying. And the end-to-end learning approach of Google, in that sense, has big question marks for me. Because if you cannot simulate reality, since you don't understand it, and we do not understand reality, we don't understand the fundamental laws of physics, we don't understand the fundamental laws of quantum mechanics, we don't understand a lot of these things. We know how to use them, but we don't understand them. So we cannot program reality, at least not yet. Maybe one day we will be able to do it, but we're not able to do it right now. So since we cannot understand reality, we can't program it, or the reason we don't understand it is because we can't program it. Hence, there is no other way to interact with reality through an artificial intelligence other than the piecemeal approach of Tesla or Palantir or PayPal or all these companies that were built in the sort of first wave of the internet revolution, the first real data science companies, if you will, which are saying, look, there is interaction with reality. Data is the translation of information from reality to me or to whoever is the entity, let's say to Tesla or to Palantir, to the customer of Palantir. And then we will find a way to use that data to make intelligent decisions. In the case of Tesla, is to drive a car. The goal is to take away the job of the driver. So whatever we're doing, humans, the machine should do. This is the goal. There's no higher goal here. And the key is now, to use the robot analogy of David Deutsch, you see, this car, if it keeps evolving through the piecemeal approach that Tesla is using, and the data engine that Tesla is building around it, this whole self-drive software could eventually have other purposes. For example, it could help old people also enter the car by maybe doing certain things that it wasn't intended to do, but it will learn through the piecemeal approach to drive in a certain way so old people can enter the car better, or it will in particular be careful when there is a school around it. Now, okay, you can say that you can learn that by end-to-end learning. I'm trying to find I'm thinking out loud here. I'm just trying to find examples of this idea that the robot becomes a novelist, which in evolution with purpose, in evolution with explanatory knowledge, is possible, because we are an example of that. We came from bacteria, we are writing operas, building opera houses. So we have the ability through explanatory knowledge to change the course of evolution. And that same way, if we use an artificial intelligence like Tesla, and we let it interact with the laws of physics through having it interact with reality, there is a high probability that the purpose of the self-drive software will evolve over time itself. And my question is, since evolution doesn't have a goal, since end-to-end learning without human intervention within the learning process, what's the goal of driving? How is that system gonna learn to do the right thing? This is my question. I'm not trying to be judgmental here. I'm a big shareholder of Tesla, so of course I hope Tesla wins, but I'm still asking this really as a neutral, critical observer. How is an end-to-end driving system supposed to learn to do the right thing when there is no specific goal? And the goal of driving is undefinable. Even Elon Musk doesn't know what the goal of driving is, but in his piecemeal approach, all he can say is, well, I'm going to solve all these problems which help me not to get involved with the steering wheel. This is my goal. But in the end-to-end system, since the system starts with zero and starts learning through animation, the goal of the system, or the end result, will be that the system will be very good at doing what the animation is doing, but the animation is not reflecting reality. And in that way, how is that system ever going to learn how to drive? So in order to do the end-to-end learning that, let's say, DeepMind and Google is trying to do for driving, we have to learn how to program reality first so we can animate it. And that's a much bigger task. So therefore, I conclude that the end-to-end learning process that Google is using through animation and self-learning is not going to work. Now, as a caveat, there is other approaches. George Hotz, CEO and founder of Comai, says he's doing it by just watching other people drive. So he's doing the same that Tesla is doing. He's watching people in reality. He's not using animation, but then he's using an end-to-end learning approach. So he's not doing piecemeal. He's doing an end-to-end learning approach. So let's think about that. So here we have end-to-end learning by watching what other people do. So this is the similar idea like watching people play Go and then learn and then become a good Go player. My problem here is that the goal of Go is to win. The process of how it's played is irrelevant, and Go makes some very crazy moves. But because Go, who cares? In the end, the winner, that's what matters. Now with driving, I'm a bit skeptical here. Let's take the analogy to driving. So if an end-to-end system learns how to drive, let's say it learns how to get from A to B. Well, it might first of all, it might kill people, because it might just overrun people, because it doesn't matter. I just have to get to A to B. But then George Hotz would say, no, because through watching other people drive, I will learn that we have to avoid other people. Yeah, but define other people: old people, fat people, kids. Okay, fine. We have all kinds of possible people. Over time, the system will learn how to distinguish between people and non-people. Then there's all the pets. Then there are the signs. Okay, fine. The system will learn all these things. Hotz says, over time, the system will learn all these things. I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical about that, because again, there's no goal here. There's no fundamental goal other than simply drive, but we don't know what the goal of driving is. And we can't animate reality. The only way we can solve this problem, at least as far as my knowledge right now, my intuition is telling me the only way to attack this problem is through piecemeal solutions in the Tesla way, the same way Palantir is trying to solve big complex problems for their customers through piecemeal solutions, building an operating software which is built around the reality, not the other way around. We're not trying to squeeze reality into the software, which is kind of like what animation or the end-to-end learning approach is trying to do. We're building the software around reality and using tools such as machine learning in particular, and solving the vision problem in more particular, which is what Tesla is doing. Solving the vision problem means finding ways to label, finding ways to learn, and then identify all the possible things you can see in reality and then make decisions around those things. This is what Tesla is doing. And in my view, this is, at least for now, the only approach which can work. Thank you.